All right, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're taking a really close look at the hidden psychology behind something you probably see every single day: buying a lottery ticket. On the surface, it just looks like a simple game of math and luck, right? But as we unpack this today, we're going to find out it's actually a profound mirror. It reflects exactly how different groups of people view their own agency, their daily struggles, and ultimately, their future. So to kick things off, let's just ask the obvious question. Who actually buys lottery tickets? We see them sold at literally every corner store. But if you stop and really look at the core demographic of the buyers, well, a very specific and honestly somewhat tragic paradox starts to emerge. It's a paradox that, surprisingly, has very little to do with the actual monetary prize, and pretty much everything to do with how we navigate human existence. Moving into our first section, the lottery paradox, a behavioral study. It's absolutely fascinating to draw a stark contrast between the folks who play and those who totally abstain. On one hand, we're faced with an uncomfortable reality. Lottery tickets are overwhelmingly bought by people who are not financially sound. Actually, many of these buyers are struggling so much that they don't even have enough money to put food on the table for their own families. Yet, they keep buying these tickets. Now contrast that with a complete opposite end of the spectrum. Very rich people have the cash to buy an entire lot of tickets, right? But we practically never see a wealthy person buying one. Which brings us to Section 2, the price of blind hope, sacrificing basics. These financially struggling individuals are buying tickets fueled by this blind hope of winning. I really want you to stop and think about that phrase for a second. Blind hope. It's a hope so intense, so blinding, that it literally causes people to sacrifice their most basic survival needs, like feeding their families, for what is, let's be honest, a mathematical improbability. It's definitely not a calculated financial investment. It's an act of pure desperation. It acts as a substitute for a reality that just feels way too difficult to bear. Next up, Section 3, the illusion of chance, calculated odds. And this whole dynamic brilliantly illustrates the illusion of chance. Just think about the logic here for a minute. Rich people have the capital to buy up massive, massive blocks of tickets. By doing that, they could mathematically manipulate the odds and create a much, much higher chance of winning that ultimate prize. They are quite literally the only ones who could actively tilt the odds in their favor, yet they totally abstain. There is no rich person standing in line at the local convenience store waiting to buy a scratch-off. And why is that? Because they simply don't view wealth as something you passively win. So here's the absolutely crucial takeaway. It's about destiny, not money. The decision to buy or not buy a lottery ticket. It isn't a financial strategy at all. It's actually a profound philosophical declaration about how you view your own place in the world. That leads us right into Section 4, reclaiming your destiny. Taking control. This massive behavioral divide perfectly captures two completely different ways of living. One mindset, it leaves destiny entirely up to life, just crossing your fingers and hoping the universe is going to hand you a winning ticket. The other mindset, though, focuses on taking full control and responsibility to completely own one's life. The wealthy non-buyer isn't relying on a lucky draw, they rely entirely on their own agency. Meanwhile, the lottery buyer, who is just completely overwhelmed by their circumstances, surrenders their agency to a tiny slip of paper. When we look really closely at the psychological profile of the habitual buyer, this tragic cycle starts to emerge. Feeling totally helpless and hopeless, they basically give up on facing challenges head-on. Instead of incrementally improving their situation step by step, they just wait. They wait for something extraordinary to spontaneously happen to them. And tragically, this waiting becomes a subconscious strategy to avoid putting in the real grinding work that's actually required to change their lives. The lottery ticket just becomes this socially acceptable excuse for stagnation. There's this heavy, incredibly evocative phrase from the research, submitted to the assaults of life. Wow. It perfectly captures the profound exhaustion of poverty. When you feel like you are constantly being battered by the assaults of life, you lose the belief that your own actions even matter. You submit. And when you submit, well, blind chance feels like the very last savior you have left. So as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a question based on everything we've just unpacked together. Are you leaving your destiny to chance? Now, you might not buy lottery tickets, but are there areas in your life where you're just waiting for something extraordinary to magically happen, instead of taking full responsibility and putting in the real work? The lottery isn't just a game. It's a test of who we believe is holding the pen to our own life story. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and I'll leave you to think about that.